Welcome to Observer Now. This week in the Palm Coast Observer. Sorry about a delay. If people were watching at 11, we got a couple minutes late start, but that's okay. I'm Brian McMillan, Executive Editor, and with me joining is the Mayor David Alfin.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for listening and watching us today.
I hope everyone is safe despite the tornado warning, which ended at 10:45. It's been quite the downpour. But I admired your ability to walk into the studio today with a phone under your chin, one in your hand, a coffee cup, umbrella, not drop anything.
As we said before the show, sometimes a mayor has to juggle a great many priorities to get to the finish line.
Indeed, indeed. If today is also happens to be opening day for Major League Baseball, to any of you baseball fans, I'm a big New York Mets fan, and if anybody catches the New York Mets reference on a headline in the Palm Coast Observer on page 1, if you could please make a comment on Facebook Live, I would really appreciate it, so I know that my reference did not go unnoticed. Did you catch it?
Does it have to do with the salary cap? I'm not sure.
No, it does not. We'll talk about that next.
Oh, okay.
You didn't want to not talk about the salaries, did you?
Well, of course, but
So this week on April 5th, Tuesday, there was big news in the City Council. The City Council members will now be paid a lot more money. So I was wondering, how are you going to spend all your extra money?
well, it's not so much about being able to spend more money. It's more about creating a balance and an equality amongst our elected officials in the city of Palm Coast government as compared to our electeds over at the school district and also the county commission. And quite honestly, that's important, but what's really important is it will attract, I think, a younger and more diverse pool of candidates for the future. And Brian, you and I talk a lot about the history of Palm Coast. I mentioned to you earlier, we just celebrated the inaugural launch of our 51st Citizens Academy. We've been holding this academy since the beginning of Palm Coast 21 plus years ago. But we need to look forward to the future, and we need young, vibrant minds that think about tomorrow more than they think about yesterday in order to help us progress into the future.
So the salaries are going up from $9,600 per year to $44,000 per year for City Council. The mayor goes from $11,400 to $46,400. So I want to mention is this money for me?
No. This is just kind of a symbolistic
Object
way to
lesson.
show- an object lesson.
This is exciting.
So
This is how much we pay you?
no,
Per
hold
day
on,
or something
hold
like that?
on. So I value every penny of every taxpayer dollar that we spend, and I spend my time making sure that we take care of each and every penny. And I think our state representative put it best, or actually our speaker-elect, that the pennies are best spent by those that earn them in the first place, which would be our payers. But all of this discussion, which I think is very important for two reasons. One, I think we brought out the community to engage in conversation with great decorum at City Hall.
Was
We had debate.
Was it good decorum?
I think so. I mean, I think people get emotional, and sometimes when you step outside the comfort zone, some emotion kind of flows out. But I would say that City Council handled it with great decorum. We had good debate. We listened to everybody. But the differential between what City Council is currently being paid and what City Council will be paid, assuming we move through the second read of the ordinance, is this much. And I don't know if we can actually see this, but that's the difference.
5 quarters.
Just to help you with your arithmetic, it's $1.86 per resident per year. So that's the differential between yesterday's pay and the vision for the future.
Okay.
However, I think it makes a big enough difference that a young or a financially challenged person who is looking forward to serving the community could afford to do so. What we have now are either older retired folks, and I probably kind of almost fit into that category, not quite. But a younger person that doesn't have great job flexibility is literally boxed out from serving. And I think that's wrong. I think everybody should get a shot at running.
Well, the rest of the city council, for the most part, agreed. One person who did not was Eddie Branquinho. He voted against. I thought his quote was was one interesting thing I want to ask you about. The story says, written by Jonathan Simmons, the news editor. Branquinho referred to Alfin's argument that higher pay would attract more qualified candidates. You remember the quote?
I do. I
said
sit right next to the councilman and respect his opinion very, very much. And his quote was,
I
he might have taken it personally.
I don't exactly take that as a compliment.
So it depends on each personality type. So I can only speak to my personality type. If you have some level of self-confidence, and I think the way I look at it and the way I project my statement is that we can all do better, we can all learn more, and we can all raise our bar. So what I'm doing is challenging myself to be a better elected official. And I think we all should do that. For example, I'm going to mayor school for the second level, which I'll be the first mayor in the history of the city of Palm Coast to complete the League of Mayors education program. I'm challenging myself. So can we be better? Yes. Are we the best? No. But we can continue to strive to be better.
Very good. So moving on from the salary situation.
I just want to make sure you get this
the 186
shot so that everybody can see the magnitude of there we go. I think they can see that now.
Excellent. So we have on page 3 the library discussion from Holly Albanese, the library director. Dave Sullivan were on Free for All Friday last week. And it's pretty cool. If you want all the details of the library, go ahead. But I want to point out one thing. What is your reaction to this? So Holly Albanese said that if people wanted to, talking about the flexibility of the library, it's not only books, there's meeting spaces. She said if people wanted to hold weddings, this could be a wedding venue. I wanted to know, if you were a fiance, you're getting married, you're planning your wedding, and you suggested to your bride-to-be that you would like to get married at the library, what do you think the reaction would be?
So I guess my first question would be, which section? In other words, would it be the science fiction,
the most romantic
romance,
books,
history, or which section at all? And actually, my first thought was, as mayor, am I entitled to marry couples or not? I don't know the answer to that. Because I do know that Mayor Netz actually performed a wedding, if you remember, but he may have had a special disposition for that.
So at the bottom of page 3 is about the Ag Museum. We're getting $4.5 million from the state
this year.
Yes, Kara Hoblick is the executive director of the Florida Ag Museum. It's on US 1 and Old Kings Road. So she said the intent is to bring people into Flagler County and get them to stay and leave a little bit of their money in the county. So they're going to make the improvements. That sounds like a lot of money are we going to get a return on investment? Is the state going to get a return on its investment?
So I'm glad you asked me, and I don't know if I mentioned this last time we were on, but I am proud to share that I have recently been appointed a trustee of Florida's only agricultural museum. So based on its geographical location at the intersection of Old Kings Road North and US 1, I fully expect the Florida's Agricultural Museum to go far beyond being a welcoming center, but to become a destination for those on their way traveling to Orlando and those coming back from Orlando. I think the opportunity is huge for giant stakeholders in the state of Florida to invest in, let's call them pavilion type expositions, in order to teach not just kids, but tourists who drive through our county about the entire history of the state of Florida. And there's a lot of history here. So will we get a return? Not only will we get a return financially, because those that come here will be local, buy localish, and spend money here, but the educational benefit. I mean, for people to know more about our great state is very exciting to me.
During the city meeting, this is on page 4 on City Watch, let's talk a little bit about Jericho Taylor. He's an intern, and on the day when he learned that the fire department would be sponsoring his firefighter training, he's driving along, he sees a crash, he's not on duty, he's barely trained, he's an intern, and he gets out and he does CPR. The person ended up dying. anyway, but gave this person a chance, and he was recognized along with some others at the city council meeting. But that was pretty cool. Kudos to Jericho Taylor, and I hope that he has a long, great career.
You know what my thought is there? I was able to stand just next to him as he was being read his not a proclamation, but the thank you from the city. As I'm thinking, we often wonder when we are faced with an emergency or a situation or great trauma or all of those veterans, for example, that we honor and we owe so much to, that had to take that first step forward in a battle zone or a war zone or something terrible like that. It's like, how do you know if you'll be ready? How do you know if you're ready to respond? How will you know if you're going to do the best or the right thing? Well, I was thinking to myself while that was being done, he did. Yeah. He showed it. I mean, he stepped up at that moment without hesitation. I mean, that's something to really honor and be proud of.
It's something that's got to be a confidence builder for the rest of his life that he did that. I think that it comes back to the value of training. That's why we do training, right? How about Lauren Johnston? She was appointed assistant city manager. She started with the city as a summer camp counselor at 17 years old, and now she's assistant city manager. And Jonathan told me that the staff gave her a standing ovation.
The staff and city council gave her a overwhelming standing ovation. But Brian, you've been in meetings with assistant manager Johnston now. Mm-hmm. Now, I have to be honest, I've been in a lot of meetings in a lot of countries over a lot of years. Mm-hmm. And Miss Johnston is tough as nails when it comes to organizing, administering, communicating, and keeping a meeting on track. And I have seen it over and over again, and I would not offer that compliment easily because I've been with some pros who really know their stuff, and she ranks right up there.
Yeah, so she's very sharp.
I applauded as loud as anyone in the room.
On page 5, there's a story about the city council. Okay, I'm supposed to say hi to the Facebook comments. Let's see. Weddings are very popular at the New York Public Library. Is that so, Maureen Walsh? Well, that's good to know. If this becomes a major wedding venue, I will be surprised, I will admit, in Flagler County. Hello to Bill Edwards. Thank you for joining us. Denise Belcher. Kathy Barnett asks, ask him why he thinks he deserves a raise. We kind of already went over that. Maybe you caught that part of the conversation already.
And just quickly, to be respectful of the comment, it's not about deserving it. It's partially about deserving the raise. It's more about the vision for the future. So I had said early on in all of my comments, it's not about me or not about our.
You're not getting this money, right? I mean, this doesn't apply to you tomorrow.
No,
I guess it would be if you got reelected. Is that accurate? Just so people are clear.
My understanding is that after the next election, it would qualify.
Okay.
But it's not about us. It's about setting the standard for the future because we need to be thinking about our candidates 3 and 5 years from now. If we don't start to develop candidates here locally, and I'm not talking about partisan politics here, I'm talking about identify those in the community, especially younger people, those that may be financially challenged, to help them step up. Let them know what it means to serve. So most electeds, when they get into office, have little or no idea of what they're in for. We should help people understand what the process is, what the responsibilities will be, so that they know in advance, they know how to plan their lives, they know how to be able to serve as the best of the best. I think that's the better answer than, do you deserve a raise? Now, I will say at the same time, for those that have forgotten already, that the city of Palm Coast was recently selected as the #1 retirement community in the entire United States. Mm-hmm. That's an honor. Yeah. That's one thing.
So also hello to Fernando Melendez and Greg Blasé, who's the president of the chamber. Let's go on to page 6. No one has caught my New York Mets reference yet, so hopefully somebody will.
Now, I lived at one time within a very short train ride of Shea Stadium.
Very cool.
And I also know the Shea family.
Awesome.
How about that?
On page 6, Scott Audie. Have you met with Scott Audie yet?
So we have not met. We have been communicating, and I must tell you, he is a gentleman who has passion and
Very
emotion, writes extremely well, makes a good point to the point where I said, look, I will meet you at the park, and I'm looking forward to it.
Just to make sure we know what we're talking about, if you haven't seen this on page 6, Scott Audie is a veteran, Vietnam veteran. He goes to Heroes Memorial Park to pay his respects, and he thinks, this is kind of, this isn't the word he used, but it's dumpy. It felt a little bit kind of like tucked away, there's no parking, it's right by a water treatment plant. It's not a sewage plant, just to clarify. That was what some people had been saying, but it's actually a drinking water, treatment plant. But he says
a life fluid experience.
He said we need to move this to a more dignified location. How about we put it in town center? First of all, that's a compliment to town center, I would say, that he feels like that would be a justified place. But do you think that it should move? Is that worth money?
So I have to correct you, if I may, with all due respect. I've learned that from my fellow city council members.
I'll see if I agree with you.
I don't want you to disrespect Mr. Audie, because not only is he a veteran of the Vietnam War, his family has served in more wars than you can count. His lineage goes back through many wars. He comes from a family of service, and he's quick to explain that it's not just about him, it's about his family of service, which is why he's so passionate about this. So there are a couple of questions. So he and I will meet at the park. So we will walk around the park together. My first question to him is going to be, I delivered a speech there this last 4th of July, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, or for the 9/11 ceremony, I can't remember which. But anyway, we planted a tree there, which was one of the only surviving tree branches from 9/11. And the reason I bring that up is because that's a living memorial and a living tribute that honors a great many folks. There have been countless ceremonies and presentations done at that site. So I have to balance his very fine comments with the memorialization of what has occurred at that site, which back in the day, and remember now we're delving back into history like many of the folks did at City Council the other day, when ITT provided that site for this park, it was wonderful. It stood the test of time. It's been there. Now the question becomes, do we dishonor those that we have honored there in the past by moving? I don't know the answer, and I don't have an opinion. What I'm going there with is an open mind, and if town center is where the future is going, then I'm all for it. And there's no doubt in my mind that we could find a community that was willing to support the effort, both in spirit and financially, to make a home in town center if that's what our community desires, as long as we respect those from the past that have been honored there.
It's certainly not a great parking situation there, but so let's talk a little bit about what we brought up last week on Observer Now. The first episode, by the way, if you're just joining us, this is the Week in Review in the Palm Coast Observer.
So this is like the second edition?
Second episode.
Second volume.
We call it an episode. There's 5. We're going to do 5 episodes with the mayor, and on the first one, Meadow Haggerty, a 5th grade student, said we should change the signs from men at work to workers present. And you said on this very program that you would ask if Public Works might be interested in doing that.
I am so happy that you reminded me, because I might have forgotten.
Dang, I was hoping. Wow! Oh my goodness! This is wonderful.
So, how old is?
She's a 5th grade student, Meadow Haggerty.
So, our 5th grade student. She is a dynamo, a powerhouse. She, on her own, came up with this observation.
Yep.
And I think it's great. So I've already spoken to our sign people. We will next speak to our subcontractor who actually places the signs. Now I have to put a footnote here.
You have notes on the back? Like a little speech there?
No. I kind of ad lib. This is ad lib. We're not scripting this show,
All
right?
right, very good.
So I will speak to them. There may be a piece that's DOT, Department of Transportation related. I mean, we will have to be respectful. But even with that, I'm sure we can find a way to get some of these signs posted. So, I mean, when you see a good idea, you need to adopt it. You need to go with it. And better than that, I will be inviting the entire school board to present and make them aware that this young lady is a part of the vision for the future. And who knows? If the pay is right, maybe she'll be able to afford to run for office and run the city of Palm Coast someday. Why not?
Very good. Kudos to Meadow Haggerty, and thank you for following up.
Absolutely.
I thought I was going to catch you on that. There were 2 young children who were severely injured in a crash. I don't have any update on them, but 7-year-old and 8-year-old. So anyway, our prayers are for that
Yes,
family.
they are. Yes.
Also on page 8, there was a firefighter, Lieutenant John Moskowitz, who is from the Flagler County Fire Rescue. He has a 4-year-old daughter who has sensory issues. And so he came up with this called Brookie sensory boxes named after his daughter. So they're going to be put on ambulances so that if a kid has trouble with that, then they'll be able to get some help and like be able to communicate better with the firefighters.
So another
Very
tool
cool idea.
to tamp down a what could be an emotional or a difficult situation, which probably health wise gives everybody a much better chance if you're covered. That's just wonderful.
But that's somebody making a big difference. So thank you for Lieutenant Moskowitz. Maureen Walsh is asking if there's any impacts from the severe weather. I don't know if there are yet. So we'll definitely report on them on the Palm Coast Observer website.
So we should put Swell Team 6 on alert.
Indeed.
Okay.
I like that. A really tragic story. This is really horrible, but you can read the details on page 10 about a guy who apparently his girlfriend, he thought she was being like bitten by the dog, and he shot the dog. And then the deputies come over. They heard reports. Yeah, shot the dog twice, and then like hid the dog, and it was like bleeding, and it was a really bad situation. And they're trying to hide it from the deputies who came over. He eventually got arrested, but really horrible situation. It's kind of it's hard when you're worried about a dog getting violent and you want to protect your family, but yet anyway, you can't really find any silver lining on that one. I guess.
So let's balance the story. So yes, cruelty to animals, and I'm a big animal person. But let's think for a minute about our first responders who had to show up at that scene. Do you think they actually had a class and a training in that particular incident? And the answer is absolutely not. They had to have the wherewithal to be kind of detectives, to ask questions, to get to the bottom of the story, because the way the story was written, when they first showed up, it's like, okay, no big deal, nothing wrong.
We only have 2 dogs.
But the story progressed. They did some observation. They did what police and our first responders do the best. They risked their own safety by going into a home they didn't know about with people that they didn't know enough about, and they were able to get to the bottom of the story, and they were able to save the dog, and the dog is going to be okay.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Now, I don't know if you learn that in first responder school. Like I said, for sure not. So kudos to the sheriff and his troops and the and the chiefs and the first responder fire service. All of these folks show up and keep us safe every day.
Yeah, I hope we can get a report on how the dog does. Hopefully the dog survives.
Good.
Shifting gears to our Cops Corner page, which is usually the lighter side of some of the interactions that the deputies have with our fine citizens in Palm Coast. But one woman took a 24-hour test drive at a dealership and then didn't show up until 17 days later. I think that was a little bit humorous. If it's not your property that's being misused. So I'm sorry to the dealership. But fortunately that was resolved. So I'm going to give a plug to subscribe to the print edition, because this experience of reading about these alumni from FPC, there's 3 people put into the FPC Artists Hall of Fame. In print, it's just cool to look at. You see the artists, you see what they're doing in their careers, and some of their artwork. Haley Martin D'Souza, she's a photographer, wedding photographer, successful. in Palm Coast and is an FBC art student grad. Aaron DeYoe, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, I'm sorry, but DEYOE. He helped design the 2004 FBC yearbook. And now he's out making branding for, big brands, which is very cool. And then Kim Fitzgerald, a lot of people may know her from Curly Tail Design. She was an FPC grad also, now in the FPC Artists Hall of Fame. She designed, among other things, the Flagler Executive Airport logo, which you can see on this page, on page 11.
Not only that, but she designed and produced the mayor's first ever business card in business 10 years ago here in the city of Palm Coast.
Very good. What a
So
great
I
collection.
have to. You turned the page too quick. So does that mean
sorry,
Matanzas is chopped liver, or do they get their shot? Because you only did FPC, so I have to tell you, Bulldogs are great, but Pirates. Come on, Brian, step it up.
Well, maybe the Matanzas High School should have an Artist Hall of Fame. And we should ask them. We should encourage them to do that.
Good idea.
It's never our fault.
Of course,
at the Observer.
Absolutely.
There was some people at Fitness One in Palm Coast, actually Flagler Beach, but in Fitness One, a Greek woman, Xenia Prevaziotis. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that right, but she and some other dance instructors there, fitness instructors, wanted to raise money for Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So they thought, well, let's put together this event. Hopefully we'll raise $500. Well, they ended up raising $4,000.
Wow.
So that was really awesome. It's really heartbreaking to see what's going on there, especially in the past week, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. But you can see a picture of them, and some of them who participated on page 12 in the Your Town section. I do want to say, also make sure we get in this about the Family Life Center. There's a couple of women who are doing such great work to try to raise money for them. Carrie Cook and Julie McDonald Silva, they started a group called Women with Wings, where they're doing like tennis tournaments to help the Family Life Center. But I just wanted to say one thing that she said. They're both also survivors of domestic violence. Here's what Julie McDonald Silva said. There's financial abuse where women don't have access to money. There's emotional abuse. There's verbal abuse. And a lot of women dismiss it and that it's okay and it's never okay, is what she said. So if you know anybody or you're having trouble with this, there is help. The Family Life Center is available. There's a hotline, 386-437-3505. I will put that in the comments on the Facebook Live as well. So round it out. Tell me something about the John Moden tree planting.
So I'm very excited about John Moden. He was an architect and engineer of building our city. We planted a tree in his honor. And those that visit Waterfront Park will see him welcoming all to the Waterfront Park on Colbert Lane in the city of Palm Coast.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great week.